world economy has now decoupled from the United States.
What a difference a year makes. At Davos in January, the mood was bullish that emerging markets could support the world. 6 months later, it became abundantly clear that this was not the case. Stock markets around the world reeled, banks went bankrupt, and even the emerging powerhouses cut back predictions for growth. But is it really as black as we imagine?
Insofar as the macroeconomics remain fundamentally sound, which they do, very low debt levels, if anything at all, very solid macro management, very responsible fiscal policies in spite of the investment that is driving growth in the region. Insofar as all of that is still in place, I think the story remains solid. I think we'll look back 10 years from now and realize that this was just a blip on the screen.
Despite downward revisions and Europe actually in recession, the countries stretching along the old spice route are still showing solid growth. Money is flowing into emerging markets. Iskandar, Malaysia, just across the bridge from Singapore, has mopped up over $11 billion in the last 18 months, much of it coming from the GCC.
The partners that come in, they are the Mubadala and also the Kuwait. We believe they are quite strong and stable, and they can withstand in terms of the storms. At the same time, they have their in terms of the money that from the energy. In terms of, they have that reserve in terms of $1 trillion, I was told. And so I think as business get on, it may not be a frenzy rate, but I think for us it's a long-term development.
However, oil prices have slid from record highs this summer, and the Middle East may become more reluctant to spend. The next wave of investment will probably come from the developed world, keen to tap into increasingly attractive economies further east.
Britain has always been a trading nation, very much part of the global economy. We're a very open economy, and the relationships we forge with Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, China, India, the growing economies of the future, are going to be absolutely vital to our own prosperity.
But this will not just be the old model of Western companies looking to make a quick buck. Savvy firms are recognising the long-term prospects of these markets and are taking a much more structured view.
There are a small number of companies who are now looking at their world from a point of view of not just a presence, but from the talent sourcing, which is where's the best talent in the world and in the emerging world, and then they'll actually make investments around the talent rather than just around the market.
And building that talent. Western economies may be in decline, but have a vast history and intellectual heritage. We will not only see a Western corporate presence building in emerging markets, but also an academic one. The UK's Newcastle University is opening a campus in Iskandar in Malaysia.
We're in a time right now of huge financial crises, currency fluctuations and so on, but what is it that lasts over time? Is your intellectual currency. And it's important that your intellectual currency not be deflated, and it's important that your intellectual currency be an international one, and that is what we are trying to do.
However, if emerging markets have much to learn from mature markets, the floundering economies of the West could do well to learn from how Asia has handled the current crisis, not least in the light of the Islamic banking sector still growing at 10% a year.
The concept that Asia actually has something to bring to the table and has learned well from what happened 10 years ago and what were the appropriate lessons or the less appropriate lessons that the West tried to teach, actually can provide some useful case studies. And it's done a lot for all of us to realize, I think, that we're all in this together and none of us can preach to anybody else.
But economically at least, we may just be seeing the start of a separation.
If we end up in a world where the US economy recovers slowly and comes out of this smaller and weaker, this could be the beginning of decoupling, because the other growth engines of the world are going to take over. And without them doing much, they're going to just pursue their natural growth rates and growth paths. And this will be the beginning of decoupling.
So maybe all those bullish predictions weren't quite so off the mark after all.